Is that me?
Yeah.
Tēnā koutou katoa, haru mai ki tēnei hui, te iwi o rangitānei tēnā koutou. Tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. I'll just do a little bit of housekeeping before we formally get underway. Welcome to the Culture and Sport Committee of the 7th of February and our first committee meeting of 2024. Happy New Year, everybody. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the Council's YouTube channel. The health and safety requirements for the building are on the screens in front, so if you're not familiar with this building, please take a moment to read through those. Councillors, we are continuing to have some technical issues, as we did this morning, so if you would like to ask a question or speak, just raise your hand, catch my eye, and I'll run a list to get people through. Hopefully the microphones work, but the speaking thing isn't. I think that's... And presenters answering questions or presenting, please could you give your names before you speak so that everybody knows who everybody is, and that's recorded for the people online as well. Good. I think that is all of the health and safety procedures. Can I please invite our Deputy Mayor to open us with a karakia? Thank you.
Tēnā koe, Madam Chair, o tira tēnā tātou ki ngā kaimā taki tēnā koutou i ngā rangatira. Tū tawa mai I runga, tū tawa mai I raro, tū tawa mai I roto, tū tawa mai I waho. Kia tau ai te mauri tū, te mauri ora, ki te katoa, haumi e, hui e, tai ki e. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay, so moving to our agenda, the first item of business is to receive the apologies. We have an apology from Councillor Leonie Harpeter, which I'm happy to move, seconded by the Deputy Chair, Councillor Meehan. Any comments on that? No. Then we'll look to vote. Thank you. Carried unanimously. Item 3 is notification of additional items, but I've not received any. And item 4, declarations of interest. Are there any for today's meeting? Good. Being none, we are moving rapidly and possibly at record-breaking speed through to item 5, public comment. Not expecting any, but speak now or forever hold your peace. No? Good. Excellent. So we move to item 6, confirmation of the minutes. So the recommendation is that the minutes of the Culture and Sport Committee meeting of 8th of November 2023, Part 1 public, be confirmed as a true and correct record, which I'm happy to move, seconded by Councillor Meehan. Any matters of clarification for the minutes? No? Then we will vote to receive those. Thank you. We've only got plus and minus, no zeros. Can we retake the vote? One moment, caller, we have a flashing light. We're going to retake that vote. If you'd like to vote now. It's carried 13 votes in favour and 1 abstention. Thank you. So, to move to the reports part of our agenda for today, item 7 is a presentation from Manawatu Youth Theatre. So I will invite Graham Johnston, Artistic Director, to come forward, and he's accompanied by Kane Parsons. We should all take friends to things, Graham, it's good. But Kane, I'm not sure what your official title is in this regard, so I will hand over to you two to introduce yourselves by the titles you wish to be known by, and hand over for your presentation. Thank you. So press the button until it goes red on the right. I worry that Councillor Finlay is giving technical advice. There we go.
Kia ora koutou, everybody. My name is Graham Johnston. This is the lovely Kane Parsons.
Kia ora.
And we are trustees of the Manawatu Youth Theatre Charitable Trust, as we are now, which is an exciting development since the last time we met. Manawatu Youth Theatre, for those of you who have never had the privilege of attending one of our shows, is something that started in 2018. Yay! We started with Susical Junior, and since then have produced a show every year in the July school holidays, except where we decided to ramp it up and go to the beautiful Regent on Broadway and produce Moana. We are about a number of things. Free access to high quality performance opportunities. What that means is we don't charge people who participate on stage or backstage with our shows any money whatsoever. So it's totally free for people to be a part of. They do need to audition, but that's about it. Building bridges with other community performance groups such as Manawatu Theatre Society, Act 3 Productions, local schools especially. Helped out a lot of schools over the last couple of years with their productions and tech and various bits and pieces. Low cost to attend our shows. Average price for the Globe is $15. Last year we managed to make, thanks to the support of council and other funders, tickets to Moana $25 at the Regent, which is a price unheard of in that space, which is amazing. Working with local iwi, Pacifica and other ethnicities to make theatre accessible. It's often been not something that has traditionally been the purview of Pacifica and Māori artists, especially as the kind of more traditional musical theatre, but it's about finding middle ground on that space. Safe, inclusive, accessible and fun, just like council meetings. So that's what we've done so far. We're very much stuck with shows that we think people want to come and see. You know, we don't have to sell the show. We're not pushing any, to be honest, any great theatrical or drama boundaries, but we're definitely providing a space for, you know, often a lot of our families, it's their first time seeing a live show because they're only an hour long, which is great. And some adults enjoy that only an hour long thing too. This is a couple of shots from This is Moana. Now, I've chosen these couple of photos just for a couple of reasons. That va'a, or waka, was made by one of the staff members at UCOL, and his father was a traditional boat builder in Rarotonga. So the whanaungatanga around that particular enterprise was huge. That stands 5.5 metres off the top of the Regent stage and is currently on display in the foyer at UCOL. Amazing backdrop and scenery, and we got all the council plants as well, which is cool. This is one of my favourite shots. That's Peter. And just the energy, the vibe we got. We got some amazing funding from Gillian to make a video of the process, and we've got some amazing backstage footage of just the energy, and then we've got an amazing crowd shot of everyone up dancing at the end of the show, and we had traditional island drums in the foyer of the Regent. It was noisy and everyone was like, this is super loud but cool. 2023 in numbers, we did 2 shows. We had 248 kids audition in total, 6,800 audience members, 90 crew, 83 cast, over 600 rehearsal hours, and this year 26 regional theatre nominations between our 2 shows. We aim for high quality all the time. And a lot of that quality is achievable because of the funding we receive through CCS and other sponsors, but CCS has been there right from the very beginning. So if you can imagine timesing that by the last 6 years, the impact we've had on a number of families, young performers, and people who maybe wouldn't have had those opportunities. 2024, Frozen Junior. Yeah, everyone loves Let It Go. There'll be a few parents in here who never want to see Frozen again in their lives, but they will be coming in July, whether they like it or not. Yeah, this year we're doing something new. We're actually extending the eldest age to 18. It's normally 16, but we just wanted to those upper voices. But there's some really cool, interesting stuff on the horizon. Last year we received funding of $2,500 from...
Was it the Arts Trust here? Arts? I can't remember the name of it, actually. Yes, thank you.
To run a workshop, which was incredibly successful. We handpicked a few people and have come up... what's next? There we go. I'll pause there. So this is our outline of the next couple of years for us. Lion King is super exciting, but it just depends on whether we can get the rights, but also School of Rock, which I am looking at doing in conjunction with Act 3 Productions as a major production at the Regent as well. And Council. First few shows, financial support and actually running the productions, getting us off the ground, which is where I think the CCS funding is for. You know, very much kind of that incubator funding. Is this something that's worthwhile? Moana, we went into the Arts and Events Fund, which gave us the opportunity to remove the financial barrier of attendance to the show, and that helped in the fact that we ran a show at the Regent over 3 days that had 4,268 people attend. So that's pretty cool. Now, if we'd had higher ticket prices, I know full well that would have been lower. Frozen, we have employed Ian Harmon, who I'm sure you've seen in this room at some point in his career, who's a nationally recognised set designer, and he is mentoring some young designers in his process. We're also working with Amy Atkins and doing puppeteering for Olaf and Sven in that show, so we can have them as puppets, which we've never done before, so it will be cool. We are currently, as part of the workshop we just talked about, developing a new work. One of the things that Moana taught us was that there are amazing stories from our youth that need to shine the light of day, and one of the unique things we have in the Manawatu is support from council and that sort of thing to, I think, generate ideas, have people fueling it. Kane has amazing connections in Te Rangatane, and our connections with the Pacifica peoples as well after Moana was huge. Every time Whirofani Tini Brown pops into the thing, we get huge hugs. So we are writing a show that's based on the principles of Te Whare Tapawhā and a young person suffering a loss and exploring the healing process of the 4 pillars of their life. So, and making it an accessible, achievable thing from primary right through to high school. So it'll be written in such a way that it can be adapted. So that's really, really cool. I have connections into a gentleman called Hayden T, who runs a trust in Auckland with Jennifer Ward Leland, and they are interested in potential funding as well once we get past a few hurdles. We did apply to Earl Trust, weren't successful this year, but we will keep applying for development of that work as well. So busy. Myth.
Thank you, Graham. I'm sure we have some questions for you. But Kane, anything to add to that before I open?
It's just lovely to see you all. I'm kind of the looks today. He's the mouthpiece. But yeah, look forward to your questions and hopefully I can answer some of those.
Okay, lovely. Just to kick off, and I know you've been in this room before, but we might have some new people here who weren't here last time. So what's the gap that you thought existed when you started Myth in 2018, and how are you going? What are your measures for filling that gap?
Okay, so I had a 13-year-old daughter who was a very high-end dancer, singer, performer. And I looked around and went, where is the opportunity? Where is the, so if you're a high-end rugby player, there's the reps. You can move on to that if you're a high-end cricketer. But the thing with performing arts is the high-end stuff is all very separate. So it's PACANs, where you can go and be a dancer or a singer, or it's National Youth Drama School or One Act Play Festival where you can be an actor. Whereas theatre's the performance space. That's the game of rugby on, it'd be like just learning to scrum. That's what you get to do. You just do scrums. I mean, that is what some rugby players do. But yeah, so that's where it came about. When I started, we had, I think, $26 in the bank account. No idea what we were doing, and I went, I'm going to make tickets $10. So it was a twofold outlook. It was the how can we get these kids on stage performing and mentored, but also not just the front of stage, not just the on stage people. But I grew up doing theatre from age sort of 6 and had people like Pat Snoxel and Gordon Elvey and all these amazing people tutor me through my time at no cost, hundreds of hours. And so that's what, and Kane was the same through both gang shows and other shows. We did our first show together at the Globe in 1991. So that's how long this partnership's been going. And yeah, so how do we measure that? That's an interesting question. I think the fact that we have over 100 kids audition, that pool changes every year. We're not just getting the same people every year, it's new people all the way through. I think when we did Moana, I had 58 10-year-olds audition. It was massive. And to see that interest in the performing arts is something we're interested in, because for me it's not about these kids are going to be international movie or Broadway stars. The skills, hard and soft, that you learn through theatre are massive.
Thanks, Graham. That's great. A question about the financial setup of it. You talked through how part of your kaupapa is to be accessible and free for people to access, and that you get funding from council that helps you do that.
Yes.
Is that working? Is that a sustainable model?
Absolutely. So, our first year's financials have just been done, which didn't incorporate like ticket sales and stuff from Moana, but we're now in a position where we have $45,000 sitting in the bank. Our 0 point is $30,000 because that's effectively what it costs to put on a show. So we always have a show in the bank. We didn't apply for funding for Madagascar because I knew we could do that off our own bat. The particular funding we looked at for this year was a very specific purpose, in that Frozen needs to be beautiful. If the set and the costumes aren't magical, the show doesn't work. Whereas a show like Madagascar, you can kind of have a bit of fun and it's not quite so important. Or not important, but integral to the storyline. I saw a space where we could offer young designers an opportunity to work with someone phenomenal. And I mean, what's Ian just worked on at Circa? Ali Harper's show. He's doing stuff for Centrepoint. So we've got someone local who is, regarded nationally and would probably be internationally if he ever decided to dip his toe into those waters. And for young rangatahi to learn from someone like that and see the process is invaluable, I believe.
Excellent. Thank you. I'm keeping my eye open for any questions. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you guys for coming in and presenting to us. Just wanted to ask a question about the original device show that you're looking at doing, because that's quite a departure from sort of the model you've operated previously. As you said, you've been running well-known shows you haven't sort of had to market. So I'm just wondering how that fits in. You showed us sort of your next 2-year vision. Are you planning to produce that and provide it next year or
No.
2 years' time, or where does it sit?
It's probably a 2-year-long project to get to the point to put it on. And devising a work, it is a process. We've done a workshop, we've got the idea, we need to turn that into a 20-minute piece, then turn it into an hour-long production. I think we've got the audience, and the quality is what we put on, is that when we do something new and we're trying to tell a local story that will have an impact, that will also help people, I think we'll be able to get bums on seats for that. But this is a bit of a longer process to get something devised. I think any musical you can think of doesn't, like Phantom of the Opera or Les Mis, doesn't just get taken on. It's quite a long process. But if we can sort of tap into, I guess, your KPIs of what you want to do to get out and about and what we've already done, and working in with the Regent and the other theatres around the place, I think we could create something quite phenomenal.
I think it's also where what the outcome we want from this, which is something that can be performed in schools as well. So not necessarily something that will be just performed by us, but adapted and played, and especially in schools, for young people to explore their voice.
Is it going to be a musical?
Oh, absolutely.
Awesome. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks to you both for sharing a bit of the journey so far with us. Just interested to know, I guess, what's happening around the Motu in this sort of space. Is this a reasonably unique initiative, or is this happening in a lot of communities around Aotearoa?
So I'm really well connected into the Junior Theatre New Zealand space. So we have attended before the Junior Theatre New Zealand space. Junior theatre is strong. It's huge. And part of the reason is, like all those shows I put up there before, that what they do is they take well-known shows and squeeze them down into an hour, which does leave a few plot holes, I will admit. But what it allows is for, like a situation like ours where we are completely independent and like don't charge a fee and things like that. I would say there's probably 4 or 5 in the country. Nelson New Theatre, Glass Ceiling Initiative, which is run through Stage Antics in Auckland with Emma Bishop. Emma is the head of Junior Theatre New Zealand and is one of our biggest supporters. We actually hired a lot of our Moana costumes from Ormiston Junior College, where she teaches in Auckland. So that connective tissue is huge. We're now starting to hire some of our costumes out to other places, and so it's junior theatre is massive. One of the initiatives where I am working with at the moment is a way because of course when people turn 18, they kind of distribute themselves out through the country and often lose connection to their whānau in theatre. So there's a thing called the National Theatre Open Day, which happens in March. So I'm currently working with Emma to try and make that also a connective tissue for young people from various performing arts institutions to be able to come and connect into Manawatu Theatre Society, Act 3 Productions, Summer Shakespeare, all those sorts of things.
Great. Could I just add on to that? I think, like Graham was saying, a lot of these places are doing these well-known Disney shows. What we're trying to start doing is to create something completely new, and I don't think many of them are doing this. It's not to get to the next levels of like Taki Rua at the moment. They've got a giant show coming on, and Regan Taylor, another good mate of ours, is associate director of that. Devising was and goes over to your dad actually, Simon Ferry and Bert van Dyke. They said, like, in the arts, it's a real hard business. You've got to make your own stuff. No one's going to be, wait by the phone call. It doesn't happen. So I think that's where we're a little bit different, what's going on, and to try and tell local stories or get the youth input. Also, Auckland, those places charge money to be part of it. Do you remember, like, surfing?
Oh, so, yeah, you've got places like Encore Theatre Collective where it's $550 a term to be part of this. So what you have is theatre. It becomes an exclusive thing that only, rich people can do.
And that's the kaupapa from the beginning. We said, just try and make it accessible, which means taking the cost out of it.
Like, it's just little things like, I remember during Moana and a few of the people would come up and they hadn't ordered show hoodies. And I was like, oh, it's there. And I kind of took them aside quietly and I said, is it money? And they're like, yeah. And I said, cool, just chuck an order in. We'll suss you out. So because you don't want to be that one kid who doesn't have the show hoodie. How stink does that make you feel? So that's the sort of stuff we're about. We've just bought, I've just bought 8 family passes to Matilda that we're going to be giving away online to families, because that to me is part of what we should be doing in terms of accessibility and that sort of thing. So yeah, the money's being put to good use, put it that way.
Great. Thanks to you both for sharing those extra dimensions of what's going on. Really appreciate it and wish you well, Madam Chair.
Deputy Mayor, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Tēnā kōrua, ngā mihi mō tō kōrua kōrero i tēnei wā. Thank you very much. My pātai is, Are the ones who miss out on the auditions, are they picked up somewhere else? Because often, I'm thinking of Māori and Pacifica kids in particular, if they miss out, often it's even a bigger step to go forward again. I might think, oh, no, how stink, I missed out. What happens to those? Are they picked up? Do you...
So one of the things we established right from the very get-go is quite often, and I've been involved in theatre all my life, and quite often you audition for a show and then you just wait, and then you get a crappy letter in the mail or an email saying, nah, you didn't get in.
Or you don't get contacted at all.
Or you don't get contacted at all. We don't do that. We individually call every single person who auditions. So we're talking, 120 odd phone calls. And most of them are horrible phone calls telling kids who are in tears on the other end of the phone that they didn't get into the show. But we also talk about why. And we also talk about, and so it's not a negative thing, it's a developmental thing. I have for the last couple of years talked about the potential of a theatre school through Myth. I know that what was Helen O'Grady is now Class Act Performing Arts, do offer drama classes, but I also am aware that within the Māori and Pacifica communities, that is quite a confronting space if it's not something you're used to doing, and so I definitely think there's work to be done in that space of finding a middle ground within the Māori Pacifica performing arts space and traditional performing arts. And,
Can I just add on to that? I think if you don't get into the show as well, we're not just about being on the stage, there's actually behind the stage as well. So there's, like you saw before, there's quite a few numbers of the people on the stage, and then everyone who's stage manager, doing lights, costumes, makeup. These are all young kids as well, being mentored by older people. So that's another funnel, so that you're still part of the whānau and the community. And then you might not be right for a show, but the next show you might be. So it's just trying to keep that, it's growing the whānau and then looking after each other. The distinct thing about being an artist is that you get told no all the time. And also we know life, like it's not all roses. So sometimes actually getting that, like, sorry, you didn't get into that, is a great learning lesson, even though it sucks. And we hate doing those phone calls. But the parents also really appreciate, because then they talk to their kids after and said, and they'll talk to us like, we thank you for actually ringing and talking to them like a person, because it is part of that journey as well. But again, we are trying to create a wider thing so that, sorry you didn't get into this show, Debs, but next show, come and audition again and have another crack. And that has happened with a few of our kids.
Yep.
And example, Eli, who just put on A Winter's Tale at the Globe, they got over 400, I think that was what they wanted. They got that over. He was in the first show, auditioned, did not get in. In fact, I won't say, it wasn't the greatest audition in the world, but he was there. Then he helped behind the stage, and since then he's just done other roles, and now he put on their own production and directed it. So I think that's the kind of ethos and what we're trying to pass on to them as we go. But as Graham said, there is still work to do.
Wonderful, thank you for that, and thank you for what you do with all the tamariki. And my last question is, given the, I suppose, the quality of the experience, the journey, have you thought about getting someone alongside, possibly students from Massey or UCO or even one of the high schools, to begin documenting this, because this would be a very good record to keep down the track?
So during Moana, we did document the in-regent process and space and showtime and rehearsal and that sort of thing. We have thought about it. It's more just, obviously once you get into the, putting on a show is a pretty big thing. So for my role specifically, I spend the show rehearsals for 10 weeks. I spend 9 months planning all this. So we have connections through UCOL as well. And
we would love to do that. That will just cost some money, just putting that out there as well. But yes, I think documenting that is really, really important. And I think we're about to start a new thing at UCOL called the Event Tech Qualification, which is just going to feed into this. At the moment, we've got sound and lighting as a strands, but then there's projection, and then it can go into that stuff as well, documentary making. So we'll keep you posted on it.
Just need to get Kane a bit more involved, because I don't do cameras.
We're actually just off Moana. We're working with the Pacifica community. We're going into the Highbury Ma Lama Lama. So we're going to go and record all their songs. And those kids are going to come into UCOL. We use the green screen. They've got all like the nursery rhymes, church songs, prayers, everything. We're just going to have a record, get the kids to do it because they want to have a record. So this is feeding off into other little projects, plus the cars, which is a separate thing, which council has helped. We've got a Christmas album we're doing this year, working with lots of different groups, and a myth choir as well. So everything's starting to feed in. It's been a long-term plan.
Yeah, very much is that, and we've always been about that connective tissue between various agencies and not reinventing wheels.
Kia ora.
Thank you both. That's got through all of the questions. Thank you so much for coming in to talk to us today and bringing us up to date with some of that journey and those future plans, which are really inspiring. So
Beautiful.
thank you
Look
both.
forward to seeing you all at Frozen.
We're over the moon. Thank you. So I will look to move that recommendation that the Culture and Sport Committee receive the presentation for information, seconded by Councillor Meehan. Open for any comments. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just really delighted and congratulate the to Youth Theatre for all their wonderful work. I think we're very fortunate in Palmerston North to have them, and I wish them all the best from all of us. Ngā mihi. Kia ora.
Thank you for that. Thank you both for coming in, and thank you for the huge amount of work that goes into each of these productions and the commitment to our, not just our performing arts community, but our wider community and the diverse expressions. It's really heartening to see lots of different kids on the stage, not just the same old every time, to see that movement, to see the growth and development over the years of 5 or 6 years of doing this now, and to see the aspiration to do something different and to move into a new work, building on Kane's spectacular success with Legend of Akatia, there you go. I think you showed that what can be done, and it's really exciting to see that come through in a youth production. So go with our very best wishes and congratulations. Thank you. Lovely. It's an encouraging note to move on to item number 8. No? Oh, we got to vote. I got carried away with myself then. It's not just up to me. Carried unanimously, thank you. And that does mean we can move to item 8 on the agenda, which is Te Manawa Museums Trust Draft Statement of Intent 2024-27. I'll invite Susanna, Chief Executive, Susanna Shadbolt, Chief Executive, Caroline Tate, Chair of the Trust, and we're holding Catherine in reserve for financial questions. Catherine Parsons, Finance Manager, is also available should we get to needing her. Thank you. Hand over to you both for your presentation.
Thank you, Councillor Vaughan. Tēnā koutou katoa. I hope you all had a very nice break of the summer and first day back here. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak to our submission for the long-term plan. Te Manawa is grateful for the ongoing support we receive from Palmerston North City Council. Over the past 6 months in particular, the support has meant that we could implement and deliver on some of the promises made and progress vital projects for the benefit of our communities. We have had a fantastic opening weekend of 6 extinctions with over 3,000 visitors coming through and a record 24,000 visitors for the month of December. Santa's Cave total visitor number was 17,856, which is a record since its opening. The high quality exhibitions we were able to develop and deliver, including over at the Art Gallery, have had a ripple effect on sponsorship, and we were able to secure and we were able to secure on relationships we were hoping to build upon over the next coming years. I do want to acknowledge the support from PNCC. Without Council, we wouldn't have been able to bring 6 extinctions to our community free of charge. The exhibition is phenomenally successful and also ensured that we can start having deeper conversations about our environment. We engaged with community leaders and rangatahi and also weaved through our own stories, showcasing items from our collection, and this really resonates with our community. The quality of exhibitions and engagement level was equally high at the art gallery, with a focus on Paul Dibble, Rita Angus, and our tertiary partners Māori Visual Arts and Yuko Te Pukenga, and previously local iconic architect Brian Elliott, proving that quality exhibitions attract higher visitor numbers, increase external revenue, and have economic impact. Last year, thanks to PNCC, we were able to acquire the Peter Bush Archive and successfully secured funding from Lotteries, Environment and Heritage to preserve, document and provide access to this nationally and internationally significant collection in partnerships with our friends from the Rugby Museum. Thanks to PNCC, we were able to make some much-needed upgrades to Te Rangi Whenua Gallery by reactivating the space, including the much-needed lighting upgrade and the new cases. Learning is one of our key components. A strong focus for us is our education program, and we work closely with schools and community leaders and have developed 2 new Mātauranga Māori programs in collaboration with Rangitane. At the forefront of our minds is removing barriers to access and participation by making our education program free of charge. We have had great feedback from our visitors and stakeholders and many reasons to celebrate this year, turning around the deficit from last year. We have achieved what we set out to do, or better, we are on the right track. This is incredibly encouraging for myself and for the team. We've had wonderful support from local business, particularly from Dibble, Elliott, and Extinctions. After 6 months, we have met 57% of our external revenue target. However, we have actually secured enough commitment for the remainder of the year and are strongly focusing on implementing our external revenue strategy. Revenue generation and increasing local funding support for exhibitions will be a strong focus for the coming years. Te Manawa is all about people. People are our most important asset. In line with PNCC and with support from Council HR and Strategic Pay, we have recently undertaken a benchmarking exercise, reviewed all our job profiles and sized jobs in line with industry standards. The museum and gallery sector is a specialised industry with a limited and highly competitive talent pool from which to recruit staff. In the regions, attracting and particularly retaining good staff is often difficult. Te Manawa needs to offer remuneration packages that reflect industry standards and that are fair and equitable in order to play its part in attracting skilled individuals to the city. Our request for an increase in baseline funding for year 1 is solely to cover the increases to payroll arising from the implementation of strategic pay. We have undertaken an affordability exercise and as an organisation have made concessions ourselves. By cutting expenditure where we could, so we can transition staff in a more timely manner, and also by making adjustments to our structure by combining 2 teams, thereby deleting a vacant senior manager role and creating a team leader role instead. It is no secret that Te Manawa urgently needs to upgrade and replace its semi-permanent offerings, which were installed as part of a multi-million-dollar upgrade in 2010. The spaces need a complete overhaul, including new content, furniture, exhibits, and interactives. The cost of making substantial changes to our semi-permanent spaces cannot be absorbed by our current funding level alone. We are faced with the growing challenges of an ageing complex and infrastructure, and addressing areas of our operation that have fallen behind in recent years and shortcomings from the last decade. So from year 2, and in a stepped approach, we are looking at an additional funding increase that would enable us to get out of this holding pattern, to rejuvenate public spaces and keep them afresh. Our current galleries, which are tired, outdated, and costing more to keep running, will reflect poorly on the quality of Te Manawa, reducing repeat visitation, and we're actually being told that nothing ever changes, and present a stale image on the city. In addition, the need to absorb costs to mitigate these risks and prioritise the work necessary will make it impossible to bring outside big-ticket shows to the regions, such as Six Extinctions or the Wildlife Photography and Frida Kahlo. An ongoing upgrade of our public spaces is vital, as otherwise we face a huge cost due to increase in cost of delivery, which I think you've recently encountered with the Amberley Avenue Bridge. Our focus for the next few years is to integrate Te Ao Māori across the museum, to develop a new science centre, to preserve, document and provide access to the Peter Bush collection in partnership with the Rugby Museum, and to upgrade our semi-permanent spaces and exhibitions. The one-off funding increase received this financial year went a long way towards addressing some of these shortcomings. However, ongoing and constantly evolving work is required. Without this funding increase, we will be limited in our capacity to meet and grow our commitments to Te Tiritio Waitangi, to maintain our service levels, to preserve and grow the collection, and to develop and deliver diverse, engaging experiences to our communities. As an organisation, we continue to seek ways to improve our environmental sustainability. Some of the most glaring areas needing improvement continue to be at the mercy of an ageing facility that was never intended to provide the kind of services it currently does. While we can and are adopting certain things operationally, our facility limits us in our ability to improve the efficiency of our storage and energy needs. We are working with council officers and elected members to enable improvements we wish to see through. Renovation or replacement of the building would certainly allow us to include both modern environmental design, more efficient technology and cultural design ethos deep into the bones of our spaces. Until such time as these aspirations can be realised, what we are doing as part of an umbrella commitment to improving our practices across the board is adopting the Tiaki promise. Tiaki Care for New Zealand is a collaborative kaupapa. The strategy and direction are guided by a collective of 7 organisations across public and private sectors, including Air New Zealand, the Department of Conservation and Tourism New Zealand, as well as an independent tikanga advisor. Tiaki invites us all to look at the world through an Indigenous lens, to form a deeper connection with place and to reflect this in our attitudes and behaviours. On an operational level, Te Manawa has improved its workspaces by creating an activity-based open-plan office environment, thereby reducing our heat pumps and our printers from 5 to just 1. We have also begun looking into improving the sustainability of our exhibitions by reusing furniture and materials and sourcing sustainable products such as plywood rather than MDF. There are new substrates emerging that can replace paylight signage, and we are also investigating with our suppliers the ability to direct print objects onto objects labels. These initiatives are in various stages of development, but they highlight our growing efforts to improve our sustainability on all fronts. In summary, we respectfully ask Council to consider a baseline funding increase of $151,700 for year 1. The requested increase to the baseline grant covers the expected increases to payroll arising from the implementation of strategic pay in line with its adoption by PNCC. This helps us offer employment and remuneration in a specialised and competitive industry that attracts top talent to live and work in our city. The requested increase does not cover our overall budgeted expenses going forward. Te Manawa is committed to seeking other sources of revenue to fulfil its mission and obligations as set out in its trust deed and the agreed statement of intent. In a stepped approach from year 2, we are asking for an additional $80,000 that can ensure a strong focus on prioritising our work. The cost of making substantial changes to our semi-permanent spaces cannot be absorbed by our current funding levels alone. We are hoping that this stepped approach of a baseline funding increase will be more affordable and easier to adopt by Council in this current environment. Even though we are working towards a new cultural precinct and are yet to engage in more discussions and planning around it, it would be remiss to lose our ambition and to continue to place the museum in a holding pattern when challenges can be met and improvements can still be made, even if we had to reprioritise due to the cost. As a non-profit organisation, any surplus we make is reinvested in the organisation and the running of its services and the development of major projects. Surplus allows us to budget capital expenditure for large projects and improvements or to build up reserves. Smaller sustained increases in funding allow us to budget with more confidence that we can meet the need to be both protected and also proactive, and to ensure our ambition is not diminished. We want to avoid asking PNCC for one-off top-ups to meet unexpected shortfalls or make unwanted cuts to our people or programs. We've considered very carefully the amount requested and against our strategic objectives, the current economic environment, and our ongoing commitments to providing our valuable services to the people of Palmerston North and Manawatu. At our last hearing, Council officers asked what would be a sufficient funding level for us to provide our services as a healthy, contemporary and fit-for-purpose cultural organisation that brings value and well-being to the community. Of course, having an extra $500,000 in our budget annually would be a more realistic reflection of the costs of running a healthy museum and being katiaki to our collections. It would really help with resourcing the care of collections, ensuring exciting blockbuster exhibitions annually, developing our own content and touring products, and ensuring that we can develop the new science centre much more quickly and adequately. Instead, however, I'm here today to essentially ask for a funding increase that ensures Te Manawa can pay its staff fairly for the hard work they do. People are our most important asset, and I urge you to support the fair pay request. While the amount requested today won't fully get us to being a healthy, contemporary and fit-for-purpose cultural organisation that brings value and well-being to the community, it will help us in getting there at least some way. It is important that we manage our resources carefully to keep the lights on and the doors open, but it is equally important to ensure that we can address our limitations in order to evolve, to adapt and respond to the needs and aspirations of the people that we serve. These have surpassed the capabilities afforded by our current funding levels. And as we all know, there's a risk in delaying work, and Te Manawa has delayed work for over a decade. The staff and I have laid some strong foundations and prioritised on how we will address these shortcomings over time in a roadmap for the next 6 years. Our roadmap consists of items and projects that are at the forefront of our minds of what we need to be achieving. Hopefully you will find this reflected in our SOI, and it will be increasingly reflected going forward. Before I take any questions, I would once again like to thank you for your ongoing support, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak to you today as part of the city's long-term plan. Nō reira, ngā mihi nui, tēnā koutou katoa.
Kia ora. Thank you for that, Susanna. Caroline, did you have anything to add? Are you there for support in moral sense? Thank you. Okay, there are a few questions, and I'll keep my eye open for more coming in, but we'll start with a question from the Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Look, thanks, Susanna and Caroline, for coming in, and look, thank you for I'll use the term of the roadmap and the good stuff that's happening and the challenges you're facing. I've got 3 questions. Could I just start with And excuse me if I sound a bit direct, but why did you base a lot of the rationale for the funding increase around Strategic Pay, who are just a commercial company that give out advice on payrolls?
Because we're working with council, we are adopting council's transition to strategic pay. And it's more
Is that an
aligned.
operational thing that we don't know about? I don't know what you mean.
So council has recently, council officers have recently transitioned to strategic pay as well.
Okay.
And the museum sector, the remuneration is more aligned with strategic pay in general as well.
The advantage of strategic pay as well is it assesses the salaries across New Zealand, so we get a really good baseline figure to work against.
Oh yeah, look, we've dealt with them before, but they're one of many, that's all. Okay, number two, it sounds like the challenges are quite wide, but they actually, some of them are sort of, I suppose, ring-fenced or niched as well. So has there been approaches made to any of those entities that will benefit from it, i.e. the foundation societies who do hold some funds, partners like Rangitane, Manawatu District Council, even Horizons for the river? I mean, have you explored those, or are we first cab?
No, we have explored those and we continue to explore these, particular Manawatu District Council and Horizons. So if we will meet with them over the next month as well. Rangitane will work closely on developing particularly the Te Rangi Whenua Gallery and to bring Te Ao Māori across the museum as well. And I attend on a monthly basis the Te Wherikoko meetings of the iwi leadership group. And the first question was, societies, yes. The societies, we work very closely with them in bringing them in on an operational level. For example, the Museum Society, and they don't hold any funds. They are supporting with the development of content as well for an upcoming exhibition on childhood stories. And they do the research for this, and they basically curate with staff an exhibition display. The art societies, they're particularly engaged with us in programs and acquisitions. And the Science Centre Inc. And Science Centre Trust, they work very closely with us on the development of the new Science Centre, and they have committed funds, or they will commit funds to that. So they have indicated that more as a seeding fund to obtain larger funding, because they don't have enough money in their bank account for that. Okay.
And my third question, just around the facility, and look, I mean, you are involved in the master plan, so you're not getting missed out. It's probably started its second iteration, so there is still some work to happen there. But the funding challenge is there, and I saw in the document the art gallery struggles to do any touring because of the climate control. Bearing in mind the art gallery building was always been a bit of an icon, can you not upgrade? Do you have to wait? Can that not be upgraded? Can the climate or aircon cannot be upgraded beforehand?
Yes, it could. I think it would be good to be more clear about the culture precinct, and we are working with the Art Society in particular to approach this subject because of what happened in the past. And it's actually not so much the touring exhibition, it's generally loans and even our collection items that are really unsafe to display there, but it is a large cost as well to upgrade the air conditioning. We basically need another entry and airlock to bring in as well, so there's quite a substantial cost involved, but we have started to move or to work on what is actually needed and required, and we'll discuss that with council and council officers as well.
Another factor in the mix as well is that the art gallery building was sized for exhibitions of the time when it was built. A lot of the touring exhibitions actually have a significant offering that is greater than the building can hold. So you've got two factors there, not just the environment, but also the physical size of the building.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you're around, Carolyn, but there was a lot of, there's been a lot of water under the bridge with that building, and you'd be challenged to get rid of it, I think, or we would be as well. So, yeah, I'll leave that to comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillor Naylor.
Thank you, and thank you both for presenting. My questions relate to page 48 of our agenda, or 22 of your report, the statement of revenue and expenses. I'm just particularly interested looking at the revenue, and I just want to say well done for the progress on your external revenue target in the current year. That's good news. Looking at the comparison between the 22-23 year and the budget for the 23-24 year, you're budgeting for a slightly lower revenue. And I mean, I can see the breakdown there. I'm just wondering, particularly the other revenue, which is about 100,000 less in the from the 22-23 year to what's in here, going from 381 to 283. I'm just interested to know why you're budgeting for such a lower amount for other revenue, and what the main components of other revenue are. Is that fees for exhibitions included in that? Or charges when people come in, or?
I will just ask our Finance Manager,
Thank you.
Catherine Parsons, to join us.
Catherine Parsons, Finance Manager of Te Manawa. Through the Chair, Councillor Naylor, we have revenue from the shop, which we're expecting to maintain. We have already received a 3-year grant from the Ministry of Education, so that's accounted for. We have venue hire, birthday parties and donations. So generally, at any one time, before the budget's even completed, we've got close to that money.
So my question is why it's 100,000 less in the budget from, it was, I can see the actual was 325, but what's budgeted is 283. I mean, it's quite a significantly lower amount, which seems to contribute to why the revenue is lower.
Sorry, that budget's for the 23-24 year, which we're in now. And we worked through what we thought we would get. The budget for the years in the statement of intent are 413,
Apologies.
316 and 353.
Yeah, okay, thank you for that. And in terms of the revenue from the MDC grant, that's 20,000 right across. Do they not have any sort of CPI increase in their grant?
In the 5 years I've been here, there has been no adjustment.
And there has there been any request for that?
Yes, we make submissions every year.
Okay. And just one other question related to the revenue. When there are charges for exhibitions, is there any differentiation between local visitors and outside of Palmerston North visitors in terms of the fee? Or has there been any consideration of there being a fee and a discount for locals? Like, I understand facilities sometimes in other cities has kind of two different prices. One is the price, and then there's a discounted price for locals. Is that something that's been considered in terms of revenue increases?
We actually haven't had any exhibitions that we charged for, but it would be definitely something, if we did charge, it would be something we would consider. It's often, there've been a lot of studies done around charging for, or admission charges for exhibitions or for galleries and museums in particular, and it was actually found it is a barrier to attendance as well, and we want to be as open and as inclusive as possible. But at the moment, there's nothing really on the radar that would really warrant any charges there.
Okay, so in your presentation, you said you're committed to sourcing additional sources of revenue. Are you just referring to the fundraising and sponsorship?
Yeah.
That part?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Tim, for coming in to present. Just a couple of questions from me. Have you guys got a dedicated grant writer for the organisation?
That will be me and Catherine.
Fair enough.
No, we've got some staff. Everyone sort of chips in, the senior management team, absolutely.
I appreciate that we're talking about 24 years 24 to 27 going forward, but I can see here the budget for fundraising and sponsorship for 22-23 was 537 and the actual was 40. I was wondering if that was based off 21-22 figures that perhaps had a high level of fundraising and sponsorship, if you happen to know what they were, or am I asking too far back?
Sorry, can you just repeat the question, please?
What was the actual fundraising and sponsorship for 21-22?
I don't know that we have that information to hand, but we can come back to you on that.
That's right. I just had a question regarding the additional $80,000 that you're requesting from year 2. So I understand your rationale for year 1. The rationale given in the attached letter just says that it would allow you to ensure a strong focus on prioritising our work. I was wondering if you could clarify what that means, because in your opening comments I took from it that you were hoping the $80,000 would help toward maintenance and reinvigoration of the site, which, is that what you mean by a focus on prioritising our work, or what does that statement?
Essentially, yes, but there's a little bit more to it, and sort of I alluded to that in my presentation, or I've focused on that on the presentation. Everything needs addressing at the moment, and we need to really change the semi-permanent spaces, and we need just an ongoing budget and reassurance that we can continuously make those changes and upgrades that are necessary for our spaces.
Thank you. And my final question was regarding your fundraising and sponsorship. Just wanted to get an understanding if gaming trusts play a role in your future planning for where you're going to access fundraising and sponsorship from. So Lion Foundation, Plurus Trust, pub charities, etc., given it's relevant to an item coming up for us later on today.
We have, I think we've presented this information recently, so we have Access Lion Foundation for cases, so they've granted cases, but generally lotteries, heritage and funding, we would sort of normally go to lotteries, the likes of lotteries or Creative New Zealand, but the funds, public funds at the moment are drying up and they've all had 50% cuts as well. So I think the focus for us going forward is really trying to get exhibition sponsorship, working really with local businesses as well and establishing those relationships more.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Can I pop in at this point? Have you found it difficult to attract staff to Te Manawa?
Yes, we have. There was particularly one position that we tried to fill. It was vacant for years, and then we tried to fill recently and had to advertise twice, and were unsuccessful. And I imagine you asked, but was the remuneration package part of the difficulty, or what was the reason that took so long? We still haven't filled the role. Yes, it was part of the reason as well. And in the past, some particular roles, it was difficult to attract people from particularly the centres to move to Palmerston North for very specialised roles.
Okay, thank you. And a question about refreshing the semi-permanent exhibitions. So the ones we have in place now have been there for 20 years. If we redo them now, they will still be in place when we eventually get a new facility for Te Manawa. Would there be, is it possible to future-proof the development of exhibitions now to enable them to move into a new facility, should that ever happen?
Yeah, really good question, and that's exactly what we are planning. So we are taking on a more modular approach where we can actually, like a shoebox, we can pick it up and we can tip it out into a new wonderful facility. And we are doing this with the development of the new science centre, and all the cases, of course, can move. And currently we are dealing with the infrastructure, the architectural infrastructure of the building that is so concreted in that we can't really easily change what is on the floor. So that's sort of a difficulty for us. But with any new development, we are trying to have sort of a more modular approach, things that we can easily change around and progressively change going forward.
Thanks, Susanna. And then I had a question which is about strategic pay and working with council. So I'm going to look for somebody to take the question. The process that Te Manawa has been through in benchmarking their pay, how does that compare to the approach that council has taken? What's been are we part of that benchmarking, I think is what I'm asking. Thank you, Wade. You can run, but you can't hide.
Shall I make a start on answering the question?
Wade's looking keen, so we'll just
Okay.
let him get to it. You are.
Right, just checking the question again through the chair. Just asking about the strategic pay. In terms of our journey on that has been over the last at least 3 years, possibly now. The remuneration system that we had in place was out of date, wasn't no longer fit for purpose. So the process has been to look at moving to a new provider, strategic pay. We went through that process of selecting that, and they've come out as the provider moving forward. So strategic pay looks at market movement for positions. Ours tends to be a bit of a mix of the local government sector and commercial sector, and there's different models that you can use. Strategic pay do a number of different modelling across different NGOs, private, public sector across the country, and no doubt Te Manawa have had a look at that and what might have been appropriate for them moving forward. Does that help?
Thank you. And so the benchmarking that Te Manawa have done for their staff, has that included City Council staff? Are we benchmarked against each other?
I would need to check, but I'm suggesting that it's not. I would suggest that, and Susanna's nodding in the right direction, is that Te Manawa would have had a look at organisations of similar type in that part of the sector that they're operating in.
Yes, that's correct. So the not-for-profit sector it's in a different category. But we've undertaken training with council staff as well with strategic pay, and then for the sizing of our roles, we had council staff plus Te Manawa staff sizing those jobs as well. So we worked very closely with council.
Thank you, Susanna. A question from Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and kia ora koutou. Thank you both for the presentation. A couple questions. The first one, thank you, Susanna, for taking us through a quite comprehensive list of environmental sustainability initiatives from early stage through to things that are currently implemented. Were you aware of the officer's comments in the report around concerns around environmental sustainability within the draft SOI?
Yes, we were. So this is why I brought this up in particular.
Yeah, thank you. And in terms then of finalising the SOI, would you be in a position to further emphasise some of those activities within the document?
Yes, very happy to.
Great, thank you. The second question really builds somewhat on Councillor Wood's query as well. Just we are on the cusp of making a decision one way or the other about whether council will continue to seek POCI grants in the future, and that position is potentially inclusive of CCOs. So just really would like some clarity in terms of how that decision would impact on Te Manawa as things sit.
I might ask Catherine to come along as well and perhaps add to what I have to say. So in the, I'm just going by memory, the document that we sent. So last year was incredibly helpful to have funding from Lions Foundation for the new cases. But in the past 3 years, I seem to recall we had, that there wasn't that much funding, I seem to recall, and Catherine can add to 14,000, was it? And was declined. It was some funding was declined as well, and we had the alpacas. That's right. So there was about 8,000 of that. I absolutely understand the ethical and moral issues around that, and that's something that the museum sector has discussed for years. And a lot of people, a lot of staff, feel uncomfortable receiving money from those organisations, but then there's also this the counter argument is at least something good happens with that money as well. So,
thank you. So in terms of the overall scale of your budget's somewhere north of 3 million a year, so it's a reasonably small proportion of that.
It is, but it is the capital expenditure that it adds to, and that is really necessary for us to do upgrades.
And are there situations where there's other funding avenues available and that just happens to be the convenient one?
No, not really.
So it would likely end up,
Just lotteries, but that's also increasingly difficult, and they usually want major projects rather than new cases, funding applications for new cases.
yeah. So I think that's clear for me then. There could be some marginal costs that might end up going wanting if we make that decision. Is that a reasonable place to land?
Yeah.
Great, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Barrett. And there is some information. The information that Te Manawa provided is in the papers for the council meeting about the notice of motion, if anybody's trying to figure that one out. Councillor Finlay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Along the lines of Councillor Wood and Councillor Barrett, many community groups in Palmerston North now have been forced into the situation of having to employ a fundraiser, a full-time fundraiser or a part-time fundraiser to access grants across the country. Who in Te Manawa is responsible for accessing your grants?
I've answered this before. It's mainly myself, finance manager, the senior management team. Te Manawa actually did employ a fundraiser a couple of years ago, I think it was, and I think perhaps 8% of the funds promised were raised with that fundraiser on staff.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think I've got through everybody who wanted to ask. No, Councillor Hancock.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yeah, thank you very much for coming in. Just going on from the question from, the questions from Councillor Wood and Councillor Barrett. Just in terms of accessing POKI funding, just for clarification, would it help if Council did make a decision not to in future use that funding, including CCOs, would it help if we transitioned out of that to allow you time to make adjustments accordingly?
What would that look like from a council perspective when you say transition out?
Perhaps over a 2 or 3 year period.
I can't actually answer that. At the moment, it wouldn't, because we have cases now, so we would probably look at, with the development of the new science centre, for example, that would be money we would like to access. But yeah, so at the moment, I think a transition wouldn't make it easier. I wouldn't think so. I just turn around and check what Catherine's. No.
Okay, thank you.
I'll try again. Have I had everybody who wanted to ask a question? Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Suzanne, Caroline. Just wanted to clarify, Suzanne, did you mention earlier that you've deleted a vacancy and have created a new team leader role to be filled, rather?
Essentially, so we have moved from 5 teams to 4 teams, and combined 2 teams essentially, brought the staff together, and one moved into a different team. So the senior management role was then combined as well. So instead of 2 senior managers, we only have 1, and instead have a well advertised for a team leader.
Wonderful. And were you looking to employ, did I hear the word tiaki or a kaitiaki role as well?
Yeah, a kai how to as well. So we're looking at that.
Of course. Thank you.
With rangitane input.
Thank you, Susanna. I think that's everyone. We've got to the end of questions. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming in to present. We'll move to comment shortly, but I'll just wrap up this by noting this is Caroline's last meeting with us as chair, we think. So thank you, Caroline, for your regular attendance in our meetings and for the contribution you've made to Te Manawa. Okay, so to move to the recommendations, these are in two parts because the first is a recommendation to council rather than within committee's delegated authority. So it's my intention to move recommendation 1A, that council increases Te Manua's operational grant, and I will look to see if anybody will be happy to second that. Councillor Meehan will second that. So the impact of recommendation to council is that that would then go next week's discussions about the long-term plan. That's not a decision we're taking here, we're just putting it to a council decision. And then the second block of recommendations are ones within the committee's delegation, which I'm also happy to move that the committee receives the draft statement of intent submitted by Te Manua Museum Trust, subject to council agreement of recommendation 1, and that the committee agree the recommended comments in the draft statement of intent 2024-27 outlined in table 1 be advised to Te Manua Museums Trust. So I will move those, also seconded by Councillor Meehan, and I will take comments on all of that together, if anybody would like to make any comments. Councillor Naylor.
Thank you. Just really want to acknowledge the work that's done by Te Manua in the plans going forward. This is quite a difficult decision, particularly, well, not the second and third recommendations, but the first recommendation, the request for the additional funding is quite challenging in the current environment where we are faced with significant rates increases anyway, and this would add a small amount to that. Well, would it add to that? I recognise that this recommendation is to be referred to council next week, but I just thought it's appropriate for me. I think the conversation needs to happen here. Generally, when it gets referred to council, generally speaking, the decision of the committee is endorsed. I don't believe now is the right time to increase in this level. The overall Arts and Heritage Plan does have significant increase overall, about a 9.4% increase across that Arts and Heritage Plan in terms of expenditure, and there are some areas that have got significant increases. I acknowledge that the CPI is not perhaps keeping up with the expectations of how the Te Manua Board would like to run things, but I won't be supporting that. If it fails, I would be supporting the second option in this paper being B.
Thank you, Councillor Naylor. Anybody else like to speak? Mr. Mayor.
Could I just ask a question? Has Te Manua's grant been CPI'd, or is it? I sort of just missed what the answer was.
The grant is CPI'd.
It is CPI'd,
yes.
So this is on top of the CPI?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. So, I'm supporting this, recognising that I wish things that were agreed at committee always went through at council, but that isn't always the stage, so we won't assume anything here, but I'm recommending that this go forward to council because I think Te Manua have made their case. There might be a discussion about how that case stacks up against all of the other cases that we have to discuss at council, but for Te Manua, the request that they've put forward, particularly around pay, I find to be compelling. We'd note from our papers this morning that of the rates increase that we're looking at next year, 3.6% of that is due to market movements on pay. So we know that this is a problem that council faces, and Te Manua are not exempt from that. I can't imagine why we would think it would be a way of working to give something to council, recognising that we can't have problems with recruitment and retention of staff and appropriately banding jobs, but then expect our CCOs to continue to operate at a suboptimal level. I get that we don't like this conversation and nobody wants to spend the money, but these are our people by extension. This is our family. Te Manua is part of the council family of business, and it seems to me that what's sauce for the goose is sauce for the gander. as my grandma would say. So I'm happy that we consider this in line with everything else. In terms of the other increased funding, again, I think Te Manua made their case that they are dealing with a difficult environment, a building that's difficult to manage, and semi-permanent exhibitions that have been there so long they're probably taken root. They're no longer semi-permanent and they're no longer up to modern standards. And either we continue with that, this problem isn't going to solve itself. We have to start in a stepped, gradual way to address these issues. And there isn't any funding out there that they haven't already tried to get. That situation is only going to get worse, possibly even worse, pending the decision this afternoon on Class 4 pokies that people brought into this debate. So you'll know what you're thinking about that. I'm signalling that this is a very difficult environment where funding is required. And on that basis, I think this should go into that wider council debate about how we prioritise our spending. On recommendations 2 and 3, I'm happy to receive the draft statement of intent. Delighted to see Te Manua making such good progress. The visitor numbers are incredible. This summer's visitor numbers through Six Extinctions and Santa's Cave have been amazing. And really good community feedback about making those exhibitions free. That's been a huge thing to do for our community in this cost of living crisis, that people have been able to take the kids, take the grandkids to Te Manua for an afternoon, experience those exhibitions at zero cost to do so at that direct point of entry. That really matters to people, and it was a great Christmas present that Te Manua gave our community and the council enabled. So that's fabulous. And I hope that increasing their grant funding will enable them to do more of that. That has been the way that the approach that Susanna has taken under her leadership, is to make things free to the community. The education programme is now free. We're not charging for exhibitions. These are all direct benefits that go to our community from the grant funding that council gives, and I, for one, think that's really good value for money. So I'd ask for your support, please. And on that, I'll ask you to vote. And that is carried with 11 votes in favour and 3 against. Thank you. Our next item of business is the... So did we do all 3 together? We did all 3 together. Our next item of business is the committee work schedule, which is page 67 in your papers. Chris, do you have anything to say about that? No, he doesn't. You will all note that it is very long, and I expect the next meetings will be a lot longer than this one, so just noting. I will move that we receive the work schedule, seconded by Councillor Meehan. Ask for you to vote on that. That is carried with 14 votes in favour. Nō reira ngā mihi nui ki a koutou, e ngā mana, e ngā reo, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. I was going to ask Debbie to wrap us up with the karakia, but she's moved off. So I will. Kia puta ki te whaio, ki te au marama, whakamaa ki a tina, homie, huie, tai kie. Thank you all. We will have a little break while we swap things over.